Unfortunately, at least in our country, money is kind of like an organizing principle. You'll you'll find you'll start organizing your life around money and work, and you'll fit your hobbies in later. In some periods of life, you'll fit sleep in later. When family shows up, you may even say like, I'll fit the kids in later. I got to work.
Today, I'm joined by Carl Richards, creator of the Sketch Guy column at the New York Times and one of the clearest voices on how people actually experience money. Carl is a certified financial planner, author of The Behavior Gap and the One-Page Financial Plan, and his latest book, Your Money, Reimagining Wealth in Simple Sketches, came out in October. In this conversation, we talk about why money isn't a math problem, it's emotional, personal, and shapes the way we live our lives. I'm Samuel Law, and this is The Growth Apprentice. Carl, can you tell me, who are you and who do you help?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fun question.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you ask those questions, we immediately get into identity, and we're used to saying like, I am a doctor or I am a lawyer. But when you ask who am I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm a husband and a father of 4 kids. I live in the mountains of Utah. I'm somebody who spends a lot of time outdoors. And for my work, I have spent the last 25 years trying to help people make sense of this crazy thing we call money, in all its forms. So that includes like how do I do creative work in the world? How do I make financial planning decisions? How do I start a business? So all of those places where we bump up against this really wacky thing that we call money, that we have all these feelings about, that's sort of what I do. And who does that help? I guess anybody who uses money.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it's safe to say that a lot of the work you've been doing is to help people have better conversations about money? That's a recurring theme I have seen in your work.
Yeah, I mean, Samuel, here's the truth. Like, I don't really care all that much about money. I mean, I care a lot about money personally, like having enough of it's nice. Um, but in terms of my work, money is just a tool to have conversations about the things that matter, right? Unfortunately, at least in our country, money is kind of like an organizing principle. You know, you'll find you'll start organizing your life around money and work, and you'll fit your hobbies in later. In some periods of life, you'll fit sleep in later. You know, when family shows up, you may even say like, I'll fit the kids in later. I got to work. And so money is starts to end up being what do the kids say these days? A main character, right? Money ends up being a main character in our lives, despite us not really thinking like we never gave it permission to become the main character. And so, yeah, learning to talk about it, learning to have conversations about what it means to be, a 26-year-old dad with your first child, not knowing how you're going to be able to provide for your family, or what it might mean to be a 17-year-old hearing your parents argue about whether they can make the mortgage payment. Like the ability to start to talk about money. And I don't mean in like the hand wavy investment way, like buy, sell that you see on TV. I mean about like the deeply impactful ways that money affects us day to day. So yeah, a huge chunk of my work is about how to learn how to talk about this thing called money, because a weird thing happens, Samuel, is as soon as you start talking about it, feelings start to show up. You know, you thought it was just a math conversation and suddenly you're feeling scared or envious, or you feel desire, like you want the car your buddy just bought. And you're like, wait, I thought this was just about numbers and math. Well, it's not, it's about feelings too. So yeah, learning to talk about money is incredibly important. It's a big piece of my work.
Yeah. Growing up for you, was regular money conversations something that was normal for you?
Well, let me ask you, are money conversations around your house normal?
In my family, yeah. Yeah, they are. With the work that my dad does, that is something that has been the case.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you feel like, let's say you've got a buddy that just gets this nice new car, or your buddy gets a ski pass to snowbird, and you want one. Are you able to talk about that feeling of like, "Hey, how come I can't have the thing that my neighbor can have, or the thing that my buddies all have?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's always been a a very open topic in our family,
Yeah.
and I've just realized that if there's something I want, then I've got to put in the time and the effort to buy that.
Do you think that's unusual that it's an open topic?
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I thought. I used to think that's how all families operated, is they just talked openly about money, but I've come to realize that that is not something everyone has.
No. Yeah, so to answer your question, no, it wasn't something we talked about. Money, looking back, money was a main character in our lives. When my parents were divorced when I was 8, money became a really, persistent, consistent theme, but nobody ever talked about it, right? I mean, you had a sense that, like, things were tight, and we weren't sure if we were gonna be able to stay in the house we were in. Um, I knew and listen, it's not like there was ever, I mean, I never remember wanting for food or clothing or shelter, so it's not like it was, you know, it's not like we wanted for things, but relative to other people in my neighborhood, there was plenty of sort of stress around money, and I thought, and so no, and we never talked about it. So no, it was not something we talked about.
Yeah, you're gonna recognize the follow-up to this. What is your earliest money memory, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really nice question. It wouldn't surprise you that I've been asked that a couple of times lately. And I don't really recall like a specific memory more than I recall a feeling. And the feeling of just sort of like this undercurrent. It's kind of like consistent. Have you ever had like maybe just a really low buzz in the other room that you can barely hear? And you're sort of like, for some reason, you feel a little agitated or annoyed, but you're not sure why. And then like a couple hours into it, maybe you're like, "What is that noise?" And you get up and go turn the noise off, and you're like, "Oh," like that's what it was like. Is I wasn't sure what the reason for the anxiety or the stress or the worry was, but it was money. And then I do remember having a really distinct experience with one of my best friends, and this was when I was like a sophomore in high school, and he's still one of my 2 best friends from that long ago, so whatever that would be now, you know, 30, 30 plus years. Still one of my best friends, just saw him last week. I remember when I went to his house the first time, and we didn't live in a bad neighborhood by any stretch, like, we had a nice house, but it was on a completely different level when I went to his house. Like, I remember it being, the walls were white, and I even think, like, the carpet was white. The house was kind of built around a pool. There was a pool in the middle, and there was a view of the entire Salt Lake City Valley, and I remember being like, "Oh, this is different." Like, we had brown shag carpet, like, I just remember feeling like, "Oh, this is different." So those are my earliest memories of this thing we call money, even though it wasn't, like, a really specific experience.
Yeah, yeah. You've emphasized a lot in your work that, money is not a math problem, but it's a matter of emotions. Why do you think it's important to understand and how to talk about money, knowing that it is all about, your values, your hopes, your fears, and your dreams?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're pointing to really in a really smart way is the central one of the central problems around money is that if we're taught anything about it, which most of us aren't, what we're taught is that it is, it's something you do with a spreadsheet or a calculator. Like if it's taught anywhere, it's like probably in your high school, it's like the classroom it was taught in could also be the math classroom. Like it's in that department. And so you expect math is really rational, right? Like 2 plus 2 always equals 4. I don't really, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about how you feel about that. Like 2 plus 2 equals always equals 4. But 2 plus 2 never equals envy. 2 plus 2 never equals greed. And so the reason that's a problem is you go to have a conversation with a friend, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a spouse or partner, and you're going in thinking it's going to be a math discussion. And then suddenly you're fighting. And it feels a bit, Samuel, like touching an electric fence that you didn't know was electric. Like I've actually done that. Touching an electric fence that you know is electric, like that's no fun, but it's not a surprise. But when you touch a fence that you didn't know was electric, that is a completely different experience. And so I think that's the reason this matters so much is, you just like you're okay, here you are, you're 28 and you're married and you open the credit card bill. All you did was open the credit card statement. Suddenly you're in a fight. Like that doesn't really make sense, like it's just math. No, if we go into it expecting it to be with there to be feelings, it's going to be clumsy. We give the other person lots of, because remember, like you may be in a conversation with somebody whose parents used to argue all the time about whether they were going to be able to make the mortgage. You may be in a conversation with somebody who had to, I've had this conversation. In fact, I think it was at the university that your dad teaches at. Somebody, in fact, I think your dad was in the room, big, strong guy, student, raises his hand and tells us this story about how when he was young, he remembers having his dad lift him up when he was like 6 and put him in the dumpster to get food out behind the restaurant. Like he remembers that. Like that's like he remembers doing that for years. Well, that may be who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just have to realize like we all come with like this backpack full on our shoulders that you can't see, full of experiences and feelings and lessons. Somebody may have gotten mad at us every time we asked to buy something. They could have said like, don't be so spoiled. Right. Or that's none of your business. And suddenly you're asking me about it. So that's why I think it's important.
Yeah. As you've raised kids, Carl, what messages have you tried to share with them about money?
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't do as my kids are all older now. And so we've had this last 2 or 3 years, we've had lots of conversations about this.
Yeah.
And it was pretty clear to me that I didn't do as good a job because I didn't know how. I mean, nobody taught me how. So despite, talking about it very publicly with my column that was in a newspaper for 10 years, uh, I didn't know how to do it here. And so we've done a lot of that lately, but I was really, what's the right word? Like sort of gratified, like really relieved to see that the message they got was that money was a tool and money was largely a tool for experiences. Now, I wasn't always the most responsible, and I'm I'll own that, right? But largely the lesson that came across was money is a tool for experiences with the people you love. And for our family, that's largely outside. So we spent a lot of money on gear, a lot of money on backcountry skis. We spent a lot of money on climbing equipment and mountain bikes and trips to go use all those tools. And I've been really happy to see my kids now be saying, "Man, you guys put a lot of emphasis on experiences." And I'm glad. I don't think I would change that. I wish I'd been a little bit better about talking about it earlier on. But and then the other thing they seem to have taken away was money is about trade-offs, and I don't think that's the way they would say it. I think they would say they got a pretty clear understanding that, like, you're gonna trade some of your time, some of your life really, for some money. You do that in the form of work. And then you're going to go spend some of that money for a thing or an experience. And if you take out the middle, what you're essentially doing is spending a bit of your life for a thing or an experience. And I think I think they're pretty clear about the idea of, you know, one of my kids said to me the other day, like, man, that thing I just bought cost me 7 hours at work. And I think making that connection that money's not some weird intangible thing. It's really like, I'm going to trade some of my time or energy. I like to think of it as life. I'm going to trade a piece of my life for these shekels you're going to give me. And then I'm going to go over. And this has gotten harder as money's become less tangible. Like you probably don't. Have you ever even used a checkbook?
No.
Yeah, you don't even know what a checkbook is. Like, or how often do you actually touch physical money, Samuel? How often does that happen now?
Almost never.
Yeah, so it's gotten very intangible. So it's just sort of like a tap on a phone,
Yeah.
an entry in Venmo. So you got to be even more aware because the thing you're trading for is also intangible. Like you can't put your hands around the time that you're going to give up. You're going to go work at Subway and you're going to get paid. What do you get paid now? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think it's like $10 an hour or something. I don't
Let's
know.
just say like you $12 an hour, you're
Yeah.
gonna go over there, after taxes and whatever else, let's just say $10 an hour just to make the math easy. After taxes and everything else, maybe a donation to something that you care about, you're gonna keep 7 of those dollars, right? But you never touch it, you never see it. And then you're gonna go over here and you're gonna tap your phone and you're gonna spend $28. And I think it's really helpful to make the connection between you didn't just spend 28 magical dollars. You spent 4 hours,
Yeah.
right? And that just helps you make there's no guilt around it. It just helps you make a little bit better decisions. Is the thing you just spent worth the 4 hours? That's up for you. That's for you to decide.
Yeah. It seems like at this point you have become pretty clear on what's important to you and what you actually want to spend your time and money doing. Where did that clarity come from for you?
Lots of mistakes. And I just think that you should go into it expecting that. Like that's one thing that a lot of my most recent work is about is we, we all want to know, right? Like, oh gosh, what am I going to be doing 5 years from now? And I think for your kind of generation, if you will, it's getting even more difficult because the range of potential outcomes has gotten so wide. It used to be pretty predictable. Like for maybe my parents or my grandparents, you got a job, you worked at a company for 30 years, you had a pension, you retired. Like it was white picket fence, like the whole thing was very predictable. Now, like, my kids and then you, like, am I going to be able to afford a house? Are there going to be lawyers? There's AI taking that, like, so the range of what you could be doing 10 years from now is really wide. And so clarity on that, because I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I have no idea, and I got 30 more years to figure it out. But what you do is you just run little experiments. So the earlier you can get good at this idea, you think, that looks interesting. I think I'll go try that. And you think, what's the smallest way I could try it? Like, can I go spend an afternoon on a ranch? Ranching looks fun. My buddy's a motorcycle mechanic. Can I go spend an afternoon or a day walk? So like when you're done, you go, oh, and I call it tailwind. You just start to feel like I'd like to do that again. Or maybe you go, oh man, that was terrible. So you just keep running those experiments so you start narrowing in the range of outcomes instead of widening it. So to answer your question, the short answer is run lots of experiments.
Yeah. Yeah. And what have some of those experiments looked like for you over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a really fun one that Morgan Housel, the author of Psychology of Money, told me about. He and then I'll tell you one from me too. Morgan was a valet in Los Angeles when he was in college. So he was around a lot of fancy cars. And he's always felt, and people always tell him, you seem like you should be a car guy. And he's always felt like, gosh, it feels like I should be a car guy. But he's never really just doesn't do it for him. Like he has the money to go buy a fancy car if he wanted to, a really nice car if he wanted to, but it just sort of doesn't do it for him. But every couple of years he forgets that. So every couple of years on a business trip, he'll go to the rental car place and he'll say every couple of years, he'll be like, you know what? I mean, it's an extra $200 to get the Porsche. Every couple of years he does this cheap experiment compared to what it would cost to buy that car.
Yeah.
And he says by the time he gets to leave the car lot, he remembers like, man, I admire this thing. It's amazing. The craftsmanship's very cool, but I don't really need one. That's a really great example of running a little experiment. I really thought I wanted to be, this is just recent. I really thought I wanted to get my mountain guide certification so I could guide people in the mountains, backcountry skiing or climbing mountains. And so I went and kind of hung out with somebody. I designed I actually had a number of conversations, and I realized I liked the idea of being a mountain guide much more than I would have liked actually being a mountain guide. And so I don't have to do that. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And then I've had other things where I'm like, like right now, I just noticed last night, I actually told my wife last night, I was like, gosh, I've spent 3 days in a row working on this list. I've got a list of 50 essays on a book about risk. I made a list of 50 essays that I want to write. And the last 3 days in a row, I've gotten up really early and I've worked on these essays. I finished essay number 5 today. Essay number 5 is called Luck, the Variable We Still Pretend is Skill. I finished 5 in 2.5 days. And this is getting up at like 5 in the morning. That's super interesting. Like, I don't know. I didn't even know what to make of it. Like, I just finished my new book. I was like, I'm not going to write another book. But the last book I wrote was 11 years ago. And I'm like right back in it and really enjoying it. Gosh, really interesting. So what do I make of that? Well, let's see if I do it tomorrow. Right. And I think that's all you can really do. And that's actually what this book is about, is the idea that all you can really do is take the next little step. So those are some of the experiments I've noticed lately.
Yeah. Yeah. What have because as a person who does creative work, you've got to get your thoughts on a paper and, you got to clearly come up with new ideas and help people think about things in new ways. What has helped you to do that?
Really just practicing, right? Like it's really just learning to pay attention and notice things in the world. Like I'll notice a single word. What was it this morning? Coherence. There was this word in this work I was doing around trying to make sense of an event that happened to you, like looking back and being like, oh, the book did really well. What do you make of that? And there's this idea that we often make up, and you'll notice this, Samuel, if you start paying attention to adults, you'll notice that they tell really cute stories about their career. So if you go talk to anybody who's successful and you ask them, and they're 55 and they've been really successful, and you ask them, and they'll have a whole narrative about it. They'll have a whole story. That was not really what happened, right? Like they didn't know that. It sounds as if they knew it was a plan, a giant strategy from the beginning. It wasn't. That's just us trying to make sense of what happened to us. And what we're after is coherence. And I noticed that word this morning. I was like, man, that's such a powerful. So that's the practice. Noticing things in the world and then letting them work on you. And you could let them work on you by jotting them down in a little journal. Right now, I'm really into just record, and I have been for probably 10 years now. I just record audio notes to myself. And what's amazing now is I can load all those audio notes into ChatGPT and have Chat just keep track of them for me. It's my work. I'm not asking Chat to do anything other than be the best librarian inside my brain. And I can say, Chat, what did you notice? What recurring themes have I been thinking about for the last 20 years? Like, I've got a buddy who uploaded his entire 300-page journal into Chat, and now he journals every day. So that's the answer to your question is practice. Like creativity, I think it's the practice of creativity, not
Yeah.
being creative is different than engaging in the process of creativity. And you don't have to feel like you're an artist or a create like everybody. I'm not an artist. I'm not creative. Uh, yeah, you know what? If you decide that every morning at 6 you're going to write for 15 minutes, guess what will happen? You will become a writer, right? So it's practice.
Yeah. And then how about the benefit of unstructured time, specifically outside? What have you noticed that
It's
benefit
not
to
even
be?
like, yeah, to me, um, and there's certainly like some, it's a giant blessing and a privilege in my life to be able to say this. But when you're doing intellectual work or knowledge work, this is very different from time and effort or manual work. And believe me, like some of the trades, I'm a huge fan of the trades because, like, you want to know somebody who thinks really creatively. Watch an electrician in that's doing coming to try and fix. Watch the plumber. So fun. Like watch if you have a problem with plumbing and you don't know where it is, call the plumber. Just follow him or her around, and they'll be like, I wonder where. They're like a lot of creativity going on there. But for those of us who do knowledge work for a living, like you're writing or you're a consultant or you're a professor, chunks of unstructured time to let those ideas just bounce around. And by the way, I can only do like 2 hours a day, maybe 3 hours a day of that kind of knowledge work before your, my brain can't do more than that. Like, and so what I need is a place to let my brain take a break. And so large chunks of unstructured time, mainly outside. And again, mainly outside is important to me. It might be, you know, frequent visits to the art museum for somebody else. Or I find though a walk in nature, large chunks of unstructured time. So skiing, don't tell anybody this, but skiing is work for me. Like it's a prerequisite for continuing to do the work that I do for 20 more years. It's not a reward for having done it. I don't earn the privilege of going skiing or mountain biking. I do it so that I can do great work tomorrow. And I think, and again, was I able to do that? Was I able to see that when I was 20 or 25 or even 30? No. But you work your way into a position where you can say, my work's about results and not about time and effort. And in order to get the best results, I need to spend time outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Carl, thank you for your time today. This has been cool to learn from someone who is in a position that I would like to be in. Would like to do creative work eventually and stuff like you do. And so it's cool to see, the journey that you've taken. If you could leave, one last piece of advice for the people listening, what would that be?
Yeah, it is what I was going to say to you, which is you're already doing it, right? Like and this is so like nobody's going to wait and give you a permission slip to do it.
Yeah.
And nobody, like, I don't know who gave you, Samuel, who gave you permission to start? Is this called the Growth Apprentice? Who gave you permission to start it? Who told you were allowed to do this?
Yeah, no one did, but who's gonna stop me?
Yeah, no one showed up one day with a little wand and tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Here, I knight you, and you're allowed to do the." You just decided to do it. There's this amazing girl about your same age. I think she actually is 17, who started a venture capital fund when she was 15. She started becoming an angel investor when she was 15, and she didn't have a lot of money. So it's like, could she scrounge up 250 bucks or 500 bucks or something, which is still a lot. That's like a lot of work to make. Well, are you allowed to do that? She tells some of her, like, sometimes she can't attend the investment pitch meetings, and she'll just say, "I'm sorry, I can't make it. It's a school night." Guess what? People are like, "That's amazing." Like, she's getting access to deals and opportunities, not in spite of that, but because of that. And so that's what I would say to, like, all the people, your audience and people listening that are your age. Like, nobody says that you have to wait to write a book. Nobody says you have to wait to start a podcast. Nobody says you have to wait to become a venture capitalist. Like, it turns out you could just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have my wand, and I can just tell you, like, you don't need my permission from anybody, but if you do, like, permission granted, right? Like, go do the thing now. You're already doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of the thought process is there's not going to be some magic time when everything feels right. And like maybe a year from now, it's going to feel a lot better, but that's only going to happen if I started. And I think that's really helpful advice for anyone listening.
That's exactly right. Look, no matter what you do, you have to go through this is the same as compound interest. If you look at a compound interest curve, it's really boring. Really, really like, you save you save 25 bucks a month. What is that really gonna mean anything? No, it's actually not gonna mean anything. Next month, what I have $50, right? It's gonna take me forever even to get to $1,000. This is lame. But the only way to but what happens is that line starts to get really steep. Now it's doubling and doubling, and your audience is doubling, or your money is doubling, and the only way to get to the exciting part, we all want to find hacks and tips and tricks to get to the exciting part. But the only hack is there's no hack. The only shortcut is there's no shortcut. Like, the only way to get to the exciting part is to go through the boring part, quote unquote boring part. So the sooner you start the quote unquote boring part, I mean, man, I can't even imagine at age 17, if you were to do this for 10 years, you're going to wake up one day and just be like, what? You won't even be able to stop it. That's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I completely agree with that. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on today, Carl. This
Amazing.
has been fun.
Yeah, for sure,
Thank you.
Samuel. Nice work. Cheers.